Good afternoon. I want to talk about the Henry Hudson Bridge, southbound particularly. You recently put up a sign that said something about a toll plaza. First of all, there is no such thing as a toll plaza. And the fact that somebody thought it was important to put a sign up referring to a non-existent toll plaza is indicative of what's wrong. The failure to take down the Easy Pass signs shows a lack of understanding. The failure to take out the physical toll booths borders on, and I know that this is being recorded, so I pick my word carefully. Tolling with Easy Pass is a mature technology. It's being presented to you as a pilot project. It is so wrong as to be unbelievable. There are Easy Pass lanes all over this area, on the thruway in Suffern going north, on a Garden State Parkway from the south end to the north. There are one Easy Pass for every lane of traffic. The fact that you force or you give the opportunity to go into 4 Easy Pass lanes borders on idiotic. And if that's the way you permit this to go forward, you're wasting money. There is no added traffic from the beginning, from the north part of the Henry Hudson Bridge to Dyckman Street. Why would you have 3 lanes of traffic? 2 lanes are adequate. I remember when the Henry Hudson Parkway from the bridge to Yonkers was 3 lanes. When I was a kid, that's what was there. And when they converted to 2 lanes, it was better. South of the Henry Hudson Bridge should be 2 lanes and 2 lanes only. The 3rd lane being a shoulder. I realize it's a waste of time. The gentleman that's sitting over there has no comprehension. Traffic engineers are disobeying the law because they all do it. All of the guide signs that are being put up by Bridge and Tunnel are required to be arrow per lane, which means the arrows have to point up. It is not legal to use down arrows anymore. Now, there's a record, and I'm on it, for somebody to come back and say, you weren't warned, I will do this presentation tomorrow at the New Jersey Turnpike. I did it at the Port Authority. You can look it up. Arrows need to be pointed up. That's the law. And the law about lining the roads is clear. The fact that you had traffic engineers of the Bridge and Tunnel choose to ignore it is the responsibility of this committee.
Mr. William Henderson. Okay, Mr. Henderson, I think, has left the room. All right, why don't we get started on the approval of the minutes?
Move the minutes be adopted.
Do I have a second? Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are adopted. Committee work plan. Mr.
Okay,
President.
thank you. I'd like to refer the committee to the November agenda and a point on the work plan. Next month, the work plan will reflect the revised meeting schedule approved by the board in September, and the committee will be asked to approve the work plan for the upcoming calendar year. In addition, I'd also like to point out that the 3rd quarter diversity report, originally scheduled for October meeting, will be given next month. With that, I'd like to move on, and instead of doing the report on operations, I'd like to give a summation of what occurred during the storm, if that is okay.
Please.
Thank you.
I'm sure we're all anxious to hear.
Naturally, I'm going to break this down in post, pre, and during. Preparations for the storm included the mobilization of hundreds of our personnel and a review and revisions of our schedules to prepare for the storm and the activities that were known to be occur during any type of storm, whether it's snow or weather-related in terms of hurricane or tropical storm. Pre-storm inspections were included in this, and strategic relocation of wind and water-sensitive assets to prevent damage, such as our vehicles, were moved to higher ground. Equipment such as our portable VMS signs were moved to higher ground. And fueling of our generators were critical to post-storm work. Clearing gutters, drains, catch basins were all part of the preparation for the storm to prevent excessive flash flooding. And we were working with New York City DOT in some cases in clearing the Grand Central Parkway, which is the approach road to the RFK Bridge. We also set up water barriers in various locations that were vulnerable to closure, in particular the Rockaway facilities. And we discontinued activities that pertain to our construction activities and maintenance activities. So we were well prepared prior to the storm, and we had an amount of confidence that once the storm hit, we would be back on board and on schedule and online quickly, or at least be able to respond to it quickly. Naturally, the storm itself was much larger in capacity in terms of flooding than we had ever seen at our facilities. The winds were sometimes in excess of 100 miles an hour. Facility closures started with the UL Carry Tunnel and ended with the RFK Bridge when gusts approached 103 miles an hour. Needless to say, safety of our employees and safety of our customers was first and foremost, and we had done all the necessary work in preparation. But naturally, as we learned, the flood waters approached record numbers, and our two tunnels were affected the most. UL Carry Tunnel was flooded with East River water and Hudson River water. Several millions of gallons of water entered the tunnel, as well as the Queens Midtown Tunnel from the Newtown Creek area. Less water, but still in the millions and millions of gallons of water. Naturally, after the storm subsided, we were back online with our bridges after our engineering staff inspected the facilities to make sure they were safe, and they were. We sustained minimal damage to our bridges. Our tunnels naturally were damaged. The structural, electrical, and mechanical components of the tunnel had to be looked at, and we called in outside engineers to look at all three of the facets or assets of the tunnel before we can make any assessments about bringing traffic into the tunnel.
Just a quick question. When you mentioned Newtown Creek entering the Midtown Tunnel, was all the damage to that tunnel from the Queens end? Did water?
Yes.
So no water entered from the Manhattan end of the Midtown Tunnel?
Rainwater.
Just rainwater.
Just rainwater.
So it was Newtown Creek washing up into the Queens end of the Midtown Tunnel that caused most of the problem.
Yes. And I might add, for your own knowledge, it was the first time both the Queens Midtown and the Battery Tunnel, Carry Tunnel, had ever flooded in their history. So you're looking at decades of storms, rains, that had no impact or effect on these tunnels. So this was a first-time event, and naturally a learning curve and a lesson for all of us in the future, but we had to deal with what we had to deal with. So we brought in outside consultants to look at all our assets inside the tunnel, and our maintenance staff was assigned to work around the clock in restoring the tunnel. And in conjunction with the outside contractors and our maintenance staff, we were able to get both the tunnels back up online in what I thought was a very short period of time. I go through timelines here.
2 weeks for the queue, 3 weeks for the battery.
2 weeks approximately for the Queens Midtown, 3 weeks for the Battery Tunnel. And basically, we did it step by step. As you know, there's a ceiling there that had to be inspected. There are traffic lights. There are mechanical air ventilation systems. There are lighting fixtures inside those ceilings. Every piece, every component of the tunnel had to be inspected for safety, and a lot was damaged. Structurally, I would say it's in good condition. But the mechanical end, meaning the electrical components, were severely damaged, as well as the pumping stations and computer systems and communication systems. So step by step, we put together a very programmatic plan to get these assets back up online. We had an assembly line of maintenance personnel actually fixing and repairing the lighting in the ceiling, fixture by fixture. There were thousands of lighting fixtures that we had to replace and ballast. So we set up assembly lines of maintenance employees in our garages, and they worked feverishly 24 hours a day, along with the contractors that we had in to help us pump out the river water. Naturally, it was a first. So there was a learning curve there, and once we ascertained what we needed to do, the contractors that we called in worked spectacularly, along with the electrical contractors that assisted us in putting the lighting back at the facilities. Needless to say, I'd like to commend all of our employees at Bridges and Tunnels. First and foremost, we lost 2 Broadway. So our disaster recovery plan worked very well. We got our staff up and running at Randall's Island and 347 and 345 Madison, so we were able to conduct our business. Our field staff, I'd like to commend our operations maintenance division, was spectacular, working in conjunction with our engineering staff and the outside contractors we brought in to get these 2 facilities back up online. I have particulars. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it was a tremendous storm that we had to face, a record-setting storm, and I think we responded in record time in getting both the facilities back up online. For a time, we were on generator, and we lost the power at Randall's, which is our headquarters. We were probably 1 sandbag level away from losing that facility. So we had a lot going on, and again, I'd like to commend our maintenance staff, because by hand they kept building up the sandbag wall to prevent the headquarters at Randall's from being flooded. So I can't speak enough about all our employees, in particular those people that were out in the field doing the heavy lifting of protecting our assets and then getting them back up online. So at this point, if there's any questions, I hope we can answer them.
Where did you pump the water?
At the Battery Tunnel, we put a line down from Governor's Island and through the air shaft and pumped the water out into the bay and out from the Brooklyn side and out on the Manhattan side. So we had 3 pumping locations. You're correct. It's about 13 stories. So naturally, the headway and getting the movement of water through the system is a challenge in itself. And when I talk about a learning curve, it truly is a learning curve, because this has never really been done before. So the contractors, in conjunction with our maintenance staff and our facility engineers, worked to come up with a plan to pump out the tunnels. And after a day or 2, they had it pretty much in gear, where we were pumping out thousands of gallons of water an hour. I'd also like to add that the Army Corps of Engineers assisted us, as well as FEMA representatives were coming to the sites to give us firsthand information and consulting. At Governor's Island.
8,000 gallons a minute. 8,000 gallons a minute, I believe, were coming out of Governor. Yeah.
Okay.
Joe, is that
Did the
correct?
Midtown Tunnel flood all the way the entire distance?
It is much less flooded than the Battery Tunnel. Probably 3/4 of the Battery Tunnel flooded. Probably 1/3 to a half of.
About a third of the Queens Midtown.
And was the breach on the Manhattan side only, or Brooklyn and Manhattan for the Battery?
The Battery was both Brooklyn and Manhattan. And the Newtown Creek from the Queens Midtown Tunnel, Queens side.
Any other questions?
I'd like to add one more thing. In the midst of all this, again, in a congratulatory mode, we initiated the cashless phase of the Henry Hudson Bridge. And that's why I'm saying I can't speak enough highly about our employees and how they were focused not only on the storm, but the work at hand. And I might add, it went according to plan. It started very successfully. So we're very proud of these accomplishments at the agency.
In the spirit of that it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good, I understand from someone who lives in Battery Park City that the Cary Tunnel prevented a lot of serious damage to those buildings, because it provided like a big underground tank for the water that was building up on the Manhattan side, and it's something I never would have thought of, but of course it's true, I guess.
It was never designed for that. But yes, it did act as a funnel, so to speak, for the East River and the Hudson River. It did capture most of the water, yes.
Did you blow through your overtime budget for the next 5 years?
I would say, Mark, we are not as doing as well as we once were prior to the storm.
Well, I know I speak for everybody on the committee when I offer congratulations to the management and to the employees of Bridges and Tunnels for exemplary service and above and beyond the call of duty. So congratulations to you all, and certainly to everybody down to the street level. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, we can move on to the customer environmental survey on page 31.
Good afternoon. Bridges and Tunnels striped 31,457 linear feet of roadway in the third quarter of 2012, and we repaired 701 potholes in the third quarter. It's down from 927 in the third quarter of 2011. The overall collision per million vehicle rate was 5.40 in the third quarter of 2012, which is 19.4% better than the third quarter of 2011. The collision with injury rate in the third quarter was 0.92, which is 29.8% lower than the same period in 2011. During the third quarter of 2012, 94.1% vehicles crossed the bridge during weekday peak periods above 30 miles per hour, which is up from 85.5% in the third quarter of 2011. And that completes my report.
RFK Bridge repaving was just terrific. It's such a magnificent improvement. It's eye-opening. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are more questions, we'll move on to the Easy Pass performance report, page 41. Don?
Thanks, Jim. The market share for September for Easy Pass was about 81.4%, about 1.5 percentage points higher than the previous year. And our market share year to date is also around 81%. More than 17,000 Easy Pass accounts were opened in September. The year-to-date total is now more than 175,000, about 42,000 more than last year at the same time. So that's good news. There were more than 9,700 on-the-go accounts opened in September, about 56% of the total number of accounts opened. And the in-lane tag sales continuing to be successful. Approximately 125,000 tags have been sold in the lanes to date. That includes the Easy Pass report. If there are no questions, I'll move on to the financial report for September, which begins on page 47. In September, toll revenue for the month was down about 1% against the mid-year. Year-to-date revenue is is pretty much at budget, down only about 0.2% against the mid-year forecast. Total expenses were down about $5 million against the mid-year, primarily due to lower payroll expenses and the timing of maintenance and other operating expenses. Year-to-date, our expenses are about $18 million lower, a little more than 6%, due primarily to positive variances in those categories. Overtime is through September was just about at budget, and our support to mass transit was more than $700 million through September, which is about 4.4% better than planned. That concludes the financial report for September.
Okay, questions? Okay, we can move on to the capital program, page 57. Joe?
Good afternoon. The report on the capital program can be found on page 57 of the November book. Collectively, in September and October, there were 9 commitments made with a total commitment value of $19 million. As of October 31st, we have committed 71 tasks with a total value of $147.5 million. This compares to a year-to-date plan of 72 tasks and a value of $572.3 million. A significant portion of the variance between planned and actual commitments will be eliminated with the award within days of Project VN80B, replacement of upper-level decks on the suspended span of the Verrazano Bridge. This award, in the amount of $247.5 million, is, as I said, expected to be made by the end of the month. With the projected award of the Verrazano project, B&T will have achieved bid savings of approximately $90 million for awards made year to date. Most significant awards made in September and October were construction awards for elevator replacement at the Battery Parking Garage and a project for concrete anchorage repairs at the Bronx Whitestone Bridge, as well as a construction administration contract for a major electrical upgrade project at Queens Midtown Tunnel. For completions, there was one completion made in October. That was the tower painting at the Verrazano Bridge in the amount of $30.4 million. This brings our year-to-date completions to 4 projects completed with a cumulative value of $264.7 million. We remain on target for on-time completion of the remaining planned completions for the calendar year, and we expect overall to realize $285.8 million in project completions by year end. There were 11 closeouts made in October for $78 million. Year to date, we have closed out 61 tasks with a total value of $188.6 million. Some changes to remaining commitments for the rest of the year are shown on the lower half of page 57, and unless there are any questions, that concludes my report.
We'll move on to procurements. Tony?
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon. There are 9 procurements this month totaling about $7.83 million. There are 2 non-competitive procurements, the first of which is included in the table of contents on page 72. This is a 5-year personal service contract for $60,000 between Bridges and Tunnels and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration that will enable NOAA to operate, maintain, and repair the microwave air gap measurement system at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. The system includes a microwave sensor that measures the gap between the bottom of the bridge and the water surface to ensure that marine vessels have proper clearance as they pass beneath the bridge. Next, on page 73, there is a modification to a miscellaneous procurement contract with CityLog for $267,828 to upgrade the software for the video incident detection system which enables monitoring of traffic activity at our two tunnels, the Throgs Neck and the Verrazano Narrows bridges. This system will be installed at the Henry Hudson Bridge under this amendment. All other procurements are competitive and summarized as follows. Starting on pages 76 and 77, there is a staff summary requesting the board to declare competitive bidding to be impractical and to authorize Bridges and Tunnels to enter into a competitive RFP process for design-build services for the replacement of substation number 1 at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. This project's budget is $17 million. The second item included on pages 78 and 79 is a personal service contract with Hatchmont McDonald, New York, for design and construction support services for rehabilitation of the tunnel walls, roadway, drainage, ceiling, and fire line at the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, now the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel. At this time, we are requesting approval only for design services in an amount of $2,702,411.
I have a question on that
Okay.
battery tunnel item. Does that now need to be changed due to what happened after Sandy? Is the drainage and the sealing part of the contract going to require further work?
Yeah, well, I would say it can't be determined at this time what the impact of Sandy will have on the facility, but undoubtedly there are going to be increases to the design. In effect, the magnitude of the design will change.
Andrew, I think assessments of the tunnel are still ongoing, and it would be, preliminary indications are that we're going to have to do a top-to-bottom assessment of all our assets inside the tunnel, all the structural, electrical components, the computer components. So I don't think we can.
I'm wondering if this procurement, would then need an amendment or a change after you determine what has to be done, what kind of damage you really sustained.
I think we can speak to that better as we move along. I think that we'll have to address that as it comes along. Yes.
Yeah, I actually have a question on the Verrazano Bridge sensor.
Okay.
How much clearance is there now from the Verrazano to the water that's underneath it? And these big cruise ships, how much do they make it under by?
I could answer that. It's 225 feet above mean high water.
Mm-hmm.
And the cruise ships, from what I understand, make it by about 30 to 40 feet.
Which is more than any tidal change would be. So.
Yeah. There are some ships that only clear by 14 feet, but I think they do a little adjustment before they come under the bridge just to make sure.
For antennas then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They drop the shock absorbers.
Moving to page 80. There is a modification to a personal service contract with HNTB New York Engineering and Architecture to perform construction support services as well as additional design services in connection with our construction project for a new ramp at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. The total value of this amendment is $2,070,495. The next three items appear on pages 81 through 83. These are modifications to public work contracts with Judd Law Contracting, Restani Construction Corps, and TAP Electrical Contracting Service for additional work at the Henry Hudson and Verrazano Narrows Bridges and the Hugh Carey Tunnel, respectively. The value of the three amendments is $2,083,000. The last item is on page 84, and it's a modification to a miscellaneous procurement contract with TransDigm for $646,930 to provide continued maintenance services for the Advanced Traffic Management Incident Detect Evaluate Act system. And this month, there are no ratifications. Questions?
Any questions?
On the the Restani construction, the additional expense being authorized was because of boulders that were discovered. I guess they're big boulders. during construction that were not anticipated. Just wanted to get a sense for the kind of margin that you throw into a contract to account for stuff like that, because I mean you're bound to find it every time.
What?
There was a geotechnical investigation done during the design phase as per normal. That investigation did not reveal an extensive amount of these boulders, and there was some language in the contract that alluded to the fact that some obstructions could be anticipated, and as per standard with these kind of site condition type projects, the geotechnical investigation report was made available to the bidders, and based on that, there was a reasonable expectation that there would have been few of these type of obstructions encountered in the actual work. But as it turned out, the caissons, which are 3-foot diameter and 60-foot deep structures, once they were actually driven, quite a lot of these caissons were in fact impeded by massive boulders that again were not detected in the design phase geotechnical investigation. So this kind of falls into the category of differing site conditions for this kind of work, and so it's on that basis that the contractor is reimbursed for some of his costs, taking account of the fact that he should have anticipated some obstructions, but not to the extent that he actually encountered. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, it does. Do you think that the people who did the original work should have been perhaps held somewhat accountable for this as well?
We are continuing to look at that issue with the design organization's responsibility for to see if their standard of care that they exercised in specifying the required level of geotechnical investigation meets industry standard, and we're continuing to look at it. Right now, it appears that they did in fact follow industry standards, but we haven't really concluded our investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no other questions? I have a motion, second, in discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And one last order of business is an action item. It's reflected in your October book. If you do not have it, I will read it. Bridge and Tunnels seeking board authorization to enter into an agreement with the New York State Department of Transportation to provide improvements to the Gowanus Expressway approach to the Verrazano Bridge, including areas under the jurisdiction of NYSDOT, in order to complete remaining portions of a permanent continuous bus HOV lane between the Verrazano Bridge and the UL Carey Tunnel, formerly known as the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. Under this agreement, Bridges and Tunnels will reimburse NYSDOT for a portion of its overall design and construction costs in the amount of $4,500,000 over a duration of 5 years. When completed, the integrated bus HOV lane will accomplish a long-standing goal of benefiting the traveling public by providing a completely integrated bus HOV lane link between Staten Island and Brooklyn.
Any questions?
Second.
Okay, discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, and that ends our report.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. In favor?
Thank you.